Chapter 36 of John Smith's Funny Adventures on a Crutch, or The Remarkable Peregrinations of a One-Legged Soldier After the War. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. John Smith's Funny Adventures on a Crutch, or The Remarkable Peregrinations of a One-Legged Soldier After the War, by A. F. Hill. Chapter 36, Traveling Companions. About the middle of July, I resolved to return to Philadelphia before completing my tour. And one evening I took an express train for Pittsburgh, via the Pittsburgh, Fort Wayne, and Chicago Railroad. The train was not crowded, and each passenger in the car I was in had a whole seat to himself. We had traveled about 100 miles and were rolling across the state of Indiana. In the darkness of night, when two persons got on at a station somewhere, came to the middle of the car, and one took a seat beside me, while the other sat immediately in front. I glanced casually at my companion, and had not the slightest difficulty in making out that he was a sharper. "This is a fine evening," he said to me, politely, as the train thundered onward. "Very," I replied. Let it be borne in mind, however, that he had no special reason for stating, nor I for agreeing, that it was a very fine evening. On the contrary, it was dark and cloudy, and it looked like rain. "How far are you going?" he asked. "To Philadelphia," I frankly replied. "Ah, so am I." "Do you live there?" I queried. "No, but I have an uncle there, a merchant." "What street?" I asked pertly. Yes, Market Street." He then changed the subject and said, "I see you lost a leg." "Yes," I assented. "In your war, I suppose?" "Yes." "Ah," he pursued with earnestness, "many noble youths have made this sacrifice for their country, and I hope they will never be forgotten." "I hope so truly," I replied. "I know," he went on, "that you must find it very inconvenient traveling in your condition, especially when it comes to changing cars and the like. I was going to suggest that I would remain with you till we reach Philadelphia and render you any assistance." "Thank you," I interrupted. "The truth is, I used to get around very clumsily when I had 2 feet to take care of, but now, having got rid of one of those encumbrances, I get about astonishingly well. If you know how convenient it is to have but one leg to take care of, you wouldn't retain both of yours a week. You'd have one of them sawed off, sir. You would indeed." Mr. Sharper began to see that I wasn't his man, and he presently got up and took a seat just in front of his pal. On the same seat was a young man who evidently had not made regular business of traveling, and with him Mr. Sharper struck up an animated conversation, soon gaining his confidence. By and by he introduced a very curious puzzle with 2 cups and ivory balls, which he said he bought that day from an Italian peddler with one eye, who had lost a brother and 2 wives in a storm at sea on his way to this country. I was not near enough to see the exact construction of the cups and balls, but it was not long before he got up a bet about them with the green traveler. His confederate, sitting on the seat between him and me, still pretending to be a stranger to him, made a sham bet of $30, and the other man on the same seat, also a man who had never been sharpened on the grindstone of experience, bet $15. The money was put up in the hands of a passenger, and of course Sharper won. He and his confederate got off at the next station, each about $20 in, leaving a couple of foolish passengers so much poorer, and, it is to be hoped, so much wiser. Readers, in your travels, beware of friendly strangers. John Smith always bewares of them, and it pays. A description of 40 hours' ride by railroad would prove as tiresome to the reader as the ride always does to me. It is a delightful thing, in fine weather, to take a ride of 50 or 100 miles on a train, to see the fields and houses and gardens and barns and woods and fences flying past you, and to feel that lightning would get tired before it could catch you. But when you have to ride 1,000 miles, as I have often done, the thing becomes frightfully monotonous, and is anything but a pastime. Especially when night comes, does the ride grow tiresome. As for sleeping cars, I have long since vetoed them, as far as I am concerned. I decided that they are a nuisance, and I believe the majority of travelers will ratify and endorse my decision, and thus render it legal. I never slept in one yet that I did not suffer all the time, either from heat or cold. Such a thing as an even or moderate temperature I never experienced in a sleeping car. Then the space, to be stuffed as tight as the wad in a popgun into a narrow cell which they honor with the appellation of berth, a cell so narrow as to evoke unpleasant contemplations of the anticipated long and narrow home we must all go to, so narrow and contracted that you haven't room for your elbows, so narrow that you can't turn over without getting out upon the floor for the purpose, so narrow and close that as you lie on your back you are afraid to wink, lest you scrape your eyelids against the ceilings above you and break the lashes off. To be crammed into a place like this, I say, with the implied promise of repose, is the opposite extreme of extraordinary felicity. However, occupying a seat in a car for a whole night is no delicacy either, although I prefer it to the berth. How frequently one consults his timepiece on such an occasion. I look at my watch and find it, say, 12 o'clock p.m. Then I recline on my seat and try to steal a little sleep. At first I feel quite comfortable and fancy I can sleep in that position for several hours. But scarcely have I time to draw a breath before I find that my head does not rest quite comfortably against the windowsill or the back of the seat. I move it slightly, then I find that my arm is going asleep. I move it, then my ankle is twisted. I move it, then I find my whole body is out of shape. I move, turn around, and lie with my head the other way. Then I close my eyes and doze. I wake presently with a start, find my nose itching, and my leg asleep, and beginning to tingle as though 10 million insects were swarming in it. I then rub my eyes, think an hour has passed, look at my watch, and find it 13 minutes after 11. Find I made a mistake of an hour when I looked the other time. At last, the night has dragged itself away, and oh, how welcome are the tips of morning's rosy wings, as they flutter upon the horizon among the hills or over the plains. How welcome are the gray streaks that play in the east, ushering glorious mornings upon the skies. How welcome the green fields again, as the curtain of the gloomy night is lifted from the face of nature. I involuntarily exclaim with Shakespeare, "Look what streaks do lace the severing clouds in yonder east. Night's candles are put out, and jocund day stands tiptoe on the misty mountain top." End of chapter 36. Read by Joe McVary, Raleigh, North Carolina, March 13th, 2024.